And this is our Hammer Horror Films panel. And I will start. And there's lots of familiar names and some new faces here. We have Veronica Carlson, Caroline Munro, Christopher Neame, Martine Beswick, Janina Faye, and Mark Webster. And thank you all for coming here. I know it's crowded, they know it's crowded, and navigating all this. And all the love is here for you guys. Do all your mics work? I think so. Hello.
Nice and cozy, isn't it? You like it cozy. Mine isn't quite long enough. I don't know. Oopsie. Thank you. Oopsie. She's at her oopsie again. Just oops. Sorry. I'll try not to oopsie too much. Oh, do not. Oopsie. Okay. Oh, there's Tam.
Well, normally I would ask questions, but because we have like a whole football team full of celebrities here, I think I'll let you guys ask the questions, and has any, which I cannot believe, then I'll jump in. So, who has questions for our guest? No? I do.
Put your hand up.
Yes. What's your favorite Hammer production you've been involved in? Because I love the Hammer films. I think they're some of the best films that were ever made.
I do too, actually. I think they were special films of their time, and timeless and dateless, and they look brilliant now. I think
Happy films.
happy films to make.
I just like a big family. Am I on?
Yeah.
You are. You're always on.
Yeah, I'm speaking, you're absolutely right. Now this is like family over the years, and it's always, the set was a very happy set. I don't think I knew there was any other kind. I was so lucky. Each film I've made has been a happy film. Except the one when Peter lost his wife. That was not a happy film because Peter was so sad.
Our film was our film was Dracula AD 72 was just after Peter's wife died.
Yeah.
And he was very sad, but he did say to us, gave us a huge compliment. He said, it was all you guys who lifted me, you know, through that very, very difficult time. And it was a wonderful compliment from such a really great man. He was a real English gentleman. I remember, and Caroline probably remembers too, that he would smoke cigarettes. And in those days, of course, you could have cigarettes, you know, on the stage. And he would, Peter, at the end of a take, he would sit down in his deck chair and reach into a pocket, pull out these white gloves, put on the white gloves very elegantly, and smoke his cigarette, finish his cigarette, take his white gloves off again, put them back in the pocket, and then go and do a scene. It was the most beautiful thing to do. It's true. I was mesmerized. He was such a dear. And I had a lot of, as Johnny Alucard, I had a lot of fight scenes with him because I was trying to sort of nail him with my fangs. And Peter was tough as nails. He was wasn't he about 18?
He was so strong,
he did all
so
his own
fit.
stunts. He was very fit.
Yeah.
And I had a real tussle with him. And the sweetest gentleman. And I remember, and Christopher Lee was Dracula. I mean, there was no question. No question. He just walked in every now and then, you know, it was Dracula. You just didn't say hello or anything like that. He was Dracula throughout. He was a bit Daniel Day-Lewis, you know, completely in character, which was great for the actors.
I know,
because you didn't really have to act. That was it, you know.
He was a very generous actor as
Oh,
well.
no, yes,
He wanted
yes.
to give me an eye line. When Freddie said, this is your eye line, darling, look at my hand, I was going to shoot a scene, having seen Dracula, and I heard his lovely voice say, I'll be her eyeliner. And he still, I've never forgotten that moment of kindness.
Yes.
It gave so much.
Yes. And he'd sing opera too.
Oh, yes.
Especially
voice.
beautiful. Yes, there you go. He's in the shower, singing opera.
Yeah, maybe having hair
Lovely
and
man.
makeup done,
Yeah.
this beautiful aria would come out.
Yeah.
He had an extraordinary voice.
He did, in every way, the speaking voice and the singing voice. Extraordinary.
And the special effects in those days, of course, were very rudimentary. I remember in one scene, Caroline was on the altar and I was doing my thing, and there was some wonderful fellow, special effects fellow, with a water bottle with Kensington gore in it.
Very
With a
sticky.
tube coming out like this, and he was pushing this water bottle. You know, I mean, no special, no sort of.
No CGI,
CGI,
all
anything
done
like that.
in front of your eyes.
Absolutely.
Everything you saw was what you
But
got.
worked beautifully, and you see it, and you think, wow, that's incredible. You know, all these guys were running around.
You could only do about one or two takes, especially
Yeah.
with that one on the altar. It was
Yes.
so messy. Well, for me, you were all right. You were all right
Well, it's
there.
pretty messy for me as well.
Actually, yeah, you were.
But it was nicely messy. In a good way. I loved it, and Caroline was such a great support, and we had the best time.
We did. It was a real team, wasn't it?
It was a real team, and the thing is, we never realized, you know, sitting here in front of you lovely people, we never realized it was going to be a cult film. I mean, we just did the film, we thought, oh, well, that's great, you know, we just did it, and it's turned into this sort of phenomenon, you know, which is very flattering, really.
Very.
Thanks to you, Ron.
It is, without you, we wouldn't be here. I mean, you're the ones, you've made it possible for us to be here. That's so true. Thank you.
Yes, both Peter and Christopher were amazed at the following and how faithful and loyal the fans are, and it gave them such a lift, it really did, especially Peter, of course. Yes. And I remember the white gloves. He took me to dinner. Yeah, he took me out to dinner, and he was wearing white gloves. And of course, he was a gentleman of the old school.
Oh, very much
He
so.
was, wasn't he? Well, they both were,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, truly English gentlemen.
Lovely sense of humour.
Great sense of humor.
Oh, we have a
Yes, hands.
I enjoy your films immensely, and I wonder sometimes about perhaps the stunts, because I love seeing the movie Stuntman from your colleague, Joe Toole, but I just wondered if there were any stunts that went well, or stunts that, or they just avoided having you in any sort of physical stuff.
Oh no. Well, I was known as Battling Beswick because every film that I did, I had to fight. And it's, you know, and it became literally, I mean, big headlines in the papers, oh, Battling Beswick is at it again. So the first time, I think the first one was, it was Bond. It was From Russia with Love, Fighting Gypsy. And then I did 1 Million Years BC. And on that one, basically what happened was that Raquel and I were sitting in our chairs, being stars, and they paraded these two women who were going to be our doubles, who were going to do the fight. And we just sat there and we just watched these two women, and we went, we didn't say anything, we just turned to each other and went, no way. Because they had nothing, they didn't even look like it. I mean, they didn't have a physique. They didn't look like anything. So I thought, how are they going to film this? So we turned and said, no, we'll do it. And they said, no, you can't, insurance, blah, blah, blah. And we said, we can do it. We can dance, we can do it. And they let us, and it turned out to be a really good fight. But we did have a stuntman who sort of put us through our paces, you know? And we were very pleased with ourselves because we really went for it. So it was really great.
I love that Battling Beswick.
Does it again?
Janina, I have a question. Virginia, the horror Dracula,
The first one.
First Dracula.
No, the first Dracula. We had Horror Dracula here.
Was it really?
What do you have remembrances that you can recollect about working in the scene where you're in the graveyard and I think it's Peter Cushing's character is watching, waiting for you to come?
Yeah, the scene where he puts the coat around me.
Around you, yes.
Yeah. Well, of course, I was only 10 years old, and everybody said to me, and people still ask me, what did you think of Peter Cushing? And Chris had just said, I've never heard a bad word about Peter Cushing, ever. And he's very gentle, and I don't know whether that was because I was 10 years old, or whether that was because he was just such a nice man. But I was not allowed to go into the crypt area. There's the area where they had the poison, and I was never allowed to go in there. He said, you must stay here. And that was all part of that scene. That came from that, where he sat me down, put the coat around me, the little brown coat with the fur around, and he was just very, very gentle. They all were. They were all very kind to me. But I don't think they would have been otherwise with a 10-year-old child. And also they said that people have asked me, what was Christopher Lee like? Well, I was never in any scenes with Christopher Lee, so I didn't actually know him. But I'm glad I didn't if he was always Dracula. I probably would have scared the pants off me. I don't really like horror films, although I seem to have been in quite a few. Always screaming.
Well, and they're very, what some people consider one of the best sci-fi films, early British sci-fi film, Day of the Trippids.
There are stories behind the Day of the Trippids. I mean, when we made it, everybody said, why did they move away from the wonderful book of John Wyndham? They enlarged it. They took it from just being in England, they took it worldwide. And then, again, I was only 12 years old, so these are stories that have come back to me. That halfway through the film we stopped. I didn't know why we stopped. And there was some talk that there was lack of finance. But then we finished the film we thought was finished, and then 18 months later, when the film hadn't materialised, I heard that they were shooting the scenes in the lighthouse, people who've seen the film, with Janet Scott and Karen Moore. That was done because they wanted a resolve. They realised that they couldn't have the Triffids ruling the world. They had to destroy those Triffids. So they destroyed them with seawater, but that was done 18 months later. And I lost my billing. Because they then got Janet Scott and Karen Moore in. So, yeah.
It's a great film. Now, Mark, all the way down at the end.
Hello.
Hi.
So is it feeling a bit left out?
Thank you. So, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, you didn't work on any of the legendary Hammer period films, or did you?
No, but I pretty much watched all of them. I was having this conversation earlier, and they were all X-rated, I think, which now they wouldn't be. They would be kind of PG or something. But I had a friend of mine who was much older, who was over 18, and he would go into the cinema before I would go in. He'd open the back fire escape, and I'd sneak in through the fire exit. Because I always miss the first 10 minutes of these movies. So I have to watch them again just for the first 10 minutes to see actually what happened. But I was a big fan, big fan. But sadly not actually appeared in a Hammer production.
Yeah, but you've been in Oliver, which that was supposed to be true. Yes, Oliver. I think it has a horror element, of course, because of Oliver Reed.
Yeah, well, he was the werewolf, wasn't he? And I believe was that Hammer?
Yeah.
It would have been. Yeah.
But
It's a great movie, yeah.
As Fagin, he became this, well, Shanny Wallace was shot in Oliver, in that movie, and I think everybody thought they were seeing a children's film, and all of a sudden, wow, what's going on? That was a very big, successful movie worldwide. Immediately after that, though, just as a young boy, you started doing thrillers, which I thought was interesting.
Sorry?
Thrillers.
Yeah, I did a couple of movies with horses, and then I did some horror stuff.
What the People Saw.
What the People Saw, which was the American title. I think it was called something else in the UK. Which I loved that. So I had a kind of evil side rather than the sort of goody-goody kiddie that I was being portrayed before. So I had much more fun doing that.
And there was a great movie I remember seeing in the theater that took place on Malta. And it was about sort of like an assassination plot.
Okay, yeah, that was, in the UK that was called Eyewitness, but I believe that was called something else in the States.
So everybody
Someone would probably know that, yeah.
Yeah, my brain just didn't do that. That's a great movie. Susan George was that, right?
Susan George, Lionel Jeffries, yeah.
Peter Vaughan, I think.
Peter Vaughan, Peter Bowles, and yeah, it was great. 3-month holiday in Malta, fantastic.
I don't remember the title. It's a really good thriller. Right, back to, yes, sir.
First of all, I just want to thank you for many, many, many hours I've enjoyed over the years. First off, second up, you've got work with some of these really brilliant directors like Terrence Fisher and Ward Baker and Francis. How was working with those?
Yes, working with Terry and
Yeah, how was it working with directors like Terrence Fisher and Ward Baker?
they were delightful. Jimmy Sachs. They were wonderful directors. I was fortunate when I had the first movie I did with Christopher, Johnny Come Freddie was kind, gentle, patient, everything. Just right for me. Give me a hug every morning. Terry was a little bit, he thought I knew what I was doing. He was lovely to be around, but my first feeling about Terry on set, I was sitting on the stairs with Peter, and suddenly out of the blue, there's Terry saying to Peter, so how have you thought about how you'd like to kill her, Peter? Yes, I do. And I said, I just sat there and I looked at Peter, and I've given that a lot of thought, dear Terry, who said, I think I'd like to stab her. I'd like to do it in an embrace, so it just looks like I'm going to embrace her. Excellent idea, Peter. Where? And then he showed where. So they made a block and said, go to the block. And they discussed how to kill me. Didn't talk to me at all. I'd say, good morning, I mean, Terry didn't even say, oh, I just brushed in how you want to kill me. And I did say to him, just to remind him I was there, may I die with my eyes open, Terry? And he said, certainly not, darling, you will never get past the senses. But anyway, that's true. The Jimmy Snackster was the jokester, not on set, he was a super director. But he was a joke. He and Ralph Bates together were irrepressible. And he treated the horror with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek bathroom movies, which I never went along with. I was upset because I took Hammer very seriously. And I was a great fan of Hammer before I ever went into it. I was privileged to work with you. And really, there's been a very happy time. I was lucky.
Actually, you just brought up an actor I was going to ask about. One of my favorite Hammer actors who left us way too soon was Ralph Bates.
Oh.
Lovely actor.
Yes, I was talking to, doing a radio interview, and I was going through these wonderful people that I worked with, and I came to Ralph, and I suddenly realized I was naming dead. And really, it took my breath away from me. It's going to do it again if I'm not careful. I know I met his wife, Virginia, at a great convention later, much later. And I'd done a portrait of her, as I wanted to donate to Pancreatic Cancer Research Fund, and it was auctioned, and it got a lovely price to a man called Wayne Kinsey bought it. And it was a hard moment. She was in tears, I was in tears, and yes, he was far too young. Had a great future ahead of him too.
Yes.
I wanted to ask Mr. Lester, first of all, the film The Sudden Terror, I think, was the other title prior to this.
Right.
And you also did a very twisted movie called Redneck with Telly Savalas and Franco Nero, which I...
Have you seen that? I think you must be the only other person who's seen it.
Well, I recommend everyone check it out. What was your experience like on that? How much of the bizarre nature of that film were you kind of aware of while you were making it?
Yeah, it was a kidnap thing. I think it was done about, was it the Rockefeller boy who had the ear cut off, and it was in the wake of that, and a rich kid who gets kidnapped by two nefarious characters, Telly Savalas and Franco Nero. What was it like making it? I think when you're making a movie, you kind of distance yourself from the actual story of it. Otherwise, all these people here I'm sitting next to would be ghouls. They're lovely people. You know, you film it out of sequence and they edit it and they chop it all back together again. So, you know, you read the script and you get an idea of the picture. But other than that, you know, until it's actually put together, you don't really know what it's going to look like. So, yeah, to be honest with you, I've never seen it. So I think you may be the only person here that has. Maybe that's a good thing.
Sir.
Yes, I'd like to ask if Janina Faye would give me one line. Could you please say for me, I heard you call me Aunt Lucy?
In my now voice or in the voice that I had then?
Then if you got it.
I heard you call me Aunt Lucy. Thank you.
Mr. Lester brought up a point. I'm just wondering, with all that made the Hammer films or any film special, all the things that come together, and being an actor on the set, and then seeing it all, the final product on the screen, that's like when you see it with the music and everything that's put together.
You kind of get, yeah, it is like a jigsaw puzzle, and then you finally see the whole thing, and yeah, hopefully it all falls into place. And yeah, it's when you're actually making it so fragmented. You film the end at the beginning, the middle, somewhere else, and it's a joy actually to watch it all put together. So that's where the directed editing will come in.
When they work their magic, isn't it? Hopefully in the cutting room floors and, you know, it's always a surprise. Sometimes a nice surprise and sometimes not so nice. I'm right, aren't I? I think.
It's a real leap of faith.
It is a leap of faith, yes, Chris. Yes, it's a leap of faith.
Do the best you can and then you just leave it to, you know.
I have a question about Dracula 1972 and the filming of one of the scenes that Stone Run. Did they play live or did they mime?
They played live.
They played live, Stone Run, yes.
And they just had a few cameras around the place. We just went mad. And you were being super cool.
Oh.
He was being uber cool with his characters, weren't you?
Yeah,
You were.
It
He was
was
so
a
gorgeous.
huge stretch.
Oh, you were very
Took a lot of rehearsal.
No, I asked that because they became a big counterculture band,
Yes.
especially out in the West Coast. And then they had their own commune after a while. Then they disappeared off the face of the earth. But it's a very unusual scene for that kind of movie. And it just like, it's stuck right in the middle of the picture. And then it's edited well with, like she said, the way you start, you know, doffing your hat.
It works.
Very interesting things going on there.
But you know, I'm sure some of you do, and I'm sure I'm sure a lot of the music buffs know it was going to be Rod Stewart, it was going to be the Small Faces. Did you know that? Yes, it was going to be for them, it was going to be their film, they were going to do the music. And for whatever reason, maybe it wasn't big enough or whatever, they chose not to do it. And they got Stone Ground, which I think worked so well because they had a rawness about them and a realness that kind of worked for the quirky film it was. It was quirky. And the dialogue, I mean, some of the dialogue, do you remember? In the cavern, some of our stuff we had to say with very straight faces.
It was just after the 60s, King's Road in the 60s, so we were all
having a giggle.
Yeah. And we filmed just off the King's Road. So the King's Road was still throbbing from the 60s, you know, it was 1972. So, and it was just, red hot.
She was.
Yeah, just a very exciting time.
This is for Martine and Caroline. Martine, you were in For Russia with Love. Caroline, you were in I Would Love You. Can you compare like what the production values were at the time? I mean, obviously, Cubby Broccoli had just started the second movie, and by the time Caroline, you came along, the James Bond franchise was in full swing. What were like the production values going on at the time?
Well, I would say production values were, it was very different, let's say, from a Hammer film. Not to denigrate a Hammer film, because they were so wonderfully produced and filmed and shot, and the sets were amazing, the directors, they cast it right, and the cinematographers were perfect, but it was all done on the shoestring. It was a tiny budget. And you had maybe a 5 or 6 week shoot, so it was different from working on a Hammer film. And then suddenly you had this enormous kind of beast of a wonderful thing called Bond. And as you say, mine was later, so by then it was really in its full stride. And it was incredible. I just remember sitting on location in Sardinia, and we'd flown there in a private jet. Cubby used to do that. And we flew there, and it started to rain. It rained for 5 days, and they had the Riva speedboat, they had the helicopter, the Bell Jet Ranger, they had all these amazing cars, the Lotus. Everything was sitting and waiting for the rain, and of course we couldn't shoot. And Cubby and Lewis Gilbert, our director, and Roger were all playing backgammon. They were just chilling. And, you know, there was this hundreds of crew and people, so the money must have been extraordinary that we couldn't actually shoot. But on the 5th day, we were all rearing to go. The sun came out, and Claude Renoir, our cinematographer, came out and lit it, and he did a splendid job. And we were so chilled and relaxed, and it was a very tight ship. Cubby had a very tight ship, but they spared no expense.
No, really. I mean, it was the same thing with, I did 2, obviously. The first one, which actually is probably my favorite in terms of a film, complete film, was Russia with Love. I didn't get to go anywhere. There was another thing about I'm sure all of us would agree. If somebody said, you know, you're up for a film and you're going to Sardinia. Oh no, you're up for a film, where's it going? That was a question, where's it going? I'm going on holiday now. So with Thunderball, and this is when it really took off. I mean, before it was all very big budgets, very good, and lots of money spent. But when Thunderball happened, we spent 2 months. We flew out in a private jet, and we spent 2 months in Nassau. And I know you've all heard the story before, but my first job, because I had not seen the sun in years, and I was absolutely thin. My first job was to be called every morning with everyone else, and I had to tan, I had to lie in the sun, get a tan, and I had to eat.
Hard job, Martine.
I mean, really. So of course, there they were all working, you know, around me, and they were doing scenes around me. And of course, I'm wandering around, sort of like not bored and sort of dancing and doing ridiculous things and taking lots of photographs. I mean, it was just, and we had so much fun too. Also, I have to say, Terence Young was fabulous. What amazing! He was the most wonderful gentleman, and stylish and incredible, and a wicked sense of humor. Wicked sense. So it was Terence, Sean, and myself that were really kind of the mischief people.
I can believe
a lot
that.
of mischief going on. But it was a family. It was a family, and it was really a tight ship, and lots of fun, I have to tell you, lots. There's laughter. Oh, by the way, we didn't have sandwiches in a little box. We had tablecloths under the coconut trees, full lunches being served, wine if you like. I mean, we were living the Bond dream for real. Okay? So how can I complain?
One or two more questions?
Yeah, this question's for Caroline. One of my favorite Hammer films is Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter.
Thank you very much. It's very dear to my heart, that film. It was Brian Clemence's first, it was his directorial debut, and also he wrote it. He wrote, you know, it was very close to his heart. And I just think it was a beautifully crafted film. It was ahead of its time because it was so esoteric. And I think esoteric wasn't doing it in those days. It was more, Hammer was more about bosoms and things like that. But our film, this Captain Kronos, was not. It was a different kind of film. You didn't see a lot of blood, and you didn't have Christopher Lee, biting one's neck, which he did very nicely, I must admit. You didn't have that, so it was a very naturalistic film, shot with very little lighting and mostly on location. I spent my time literally in a sackcloth and barefooted, which was great. 5 minutes in makeup. Have you washed your hair? You haven't. Listen, you must not wash your hair for at least a month. I said, perfect, I won't. I must have been a bit smelly, but anyway. But we did it, and it was a great film, and I think it's a beautifully shot film, and it stands up today. And apparently Quentin Tarantino reckons it's one of his favourites, and he used some of the. If you look at Kill Bill, there's a certain thing that he does with the sword, which we did, or our Kronos did way back then. So he gives a nod to that, which is nice. But yeah, it was lovely to be.
One more question.
Question about Client Howard. With Christopher Lee's resurgence, he was almost set on back into films with both, Star Wars and also with the Lord of the Rings. He opened it up to a whole new audience, actually my kids, and it was very, very nice to see. Were you surprised that an actor at age 70, which usually doesn't happen in the States, gets this tremendous resurgence in career?
Did you hear the question? Do you want to repeat the question, Chris? Because it's a good question.
Were we surprised that Christopher Lee made that comeback?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at 70, look at Ian McKellen. Similar, he's doing the same thing. Not at all. No, actors, if they're still viable and if they're still fit enough, we'll come back and amaze. No. Having worked with Christopher, it makes complete sense because he was a man of film. That was his life, and he just he was just so easy in front of the camera, and so easy with other actors, and so easy with directors, and they loved him. They loved him because when you cast Christopher Lee, you've got good, the right stuff. And totally unique.
Yeah, also, to me anyway, I think his age wasn't it?
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
suit his age. Age didn't become him at all.
Yeah, yeah.
It left him alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Any views down there? Any views on? I can't answer because I never
I never met him, but wow, what a man, incredible. Right till, you know, the Lord of the Rings and, wow, just unique.
No, absolutely.
There will never be another.
And also, he brought it right up to date with the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars. It suddenly brought a new generation, didn't it, of viewers looking at, and they would look at him in different eyes. We knew him as Dracula and before, but he went on to do, he was so much more. And you look at all these actors, I mean, John Hurt, which was sadly just lost.
Christopher Lee had a grandeur about it.
Yeah.
He really did. I mean, when he walked in a room, I mean, it was, before he was Dracula, I mean, it was like, I'm Christopher Lee. I mean, he really did. And he had that voice. Because I met him, and he was, and I was like, whoa, it's Dracula.
He also did the cameo in the Dark Shadows remake. He was the sea captain. Yeah. With Johnny Depp.
He did a cameo
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
yes,
Yeah, great.
with Johnny Depp. Yeah.
I was very lucky because I worked with him when I was very young. I was 22, and I was talking to someone today who very kindly came up for an autograph, and they said, "Well, what was it like working with Christopher?" And I just thought, I thought back, it's been many, many years, and I just thought, well, I was just out of drama college in London, and it was my second movie I'd ever made, and I was 22, and I didn't really, care about any kind of intimidation or anything like that. I didn't know what the word meant. And so I just did the role, and hopefully it worked. And now, I mean, if I was up against Christopher Lee, I might think twice, whoa, hello, and, but it was so great because I had that kind of confidence of youth to kind of pull it off. And, but he was an awesome force, if you will, which worked fabulously well on film.
He was so charismatic in that scene that we did.
Yes.
I mean, it was just, I totally believe, there's no way I didn't believe. You set it up, and then he was there, and I believe this was Dracula. You could not do anything else but believe.
I have the rather awesome reputation of actually being a fully fledged vampire because Christopher Lee, during one of my scenes, got kind of worked up, got quite excited, and his fangs actually pierced my neck. So it's not dark outside yet, is it? I'm great fun at Halloween. So no, but he was a true gift to the cinema. True gift.
Well, that brings us to the end of our panel. Thank you guys for coming so much.
Here on Thursday, I heard the incredibly sad news that we lost Yvonne Milieu, who we knew so well, and that absolutely, I find that devastating. So we'd be nice to have thoughts on her, because she was a beautiful woman and a very dear friend. She was a very special lady, wasn't she? She was très adorable. I can't say it now, it's gone. But she was a very special woman, and she will always be forever on film. She was delightful.